Hi everyone, I've got Bryan on the show today. We are going to be talking about reservation agreements along with some other stuff. So I'm very happy to have him on the Property Podcast Today show. As always, I get my guests to do their own introduction because I find it that they could do it a lot better than I can ever do it, because I could introduce myself better than anyone could introduce me. So Bryan, I'm going to pass over to you to give us a little bit about you, what you've been up to, and then we'll go into some of the questions I've got set. So over to you, sir.
Hi, morning, Lee. Good to see you, mate. I am Bryan Mansell, the real Bryan Mansell, real Slim Shady. I enjoy dancing in the rain and champagne, the occasional lasagna. I enjoy cooking, and it feels like a dating show, doesn't it, really? Am I like...
That's a bit funny.
Yeah, I've been in the property industry since, I don't know, 1987, awfully long time. And I'm privileged at the moment to, last 7 years, to look after Gazeal.
Yes.
Which, with all of our estate agency colleagues that work in there, which is nearly 2,000 now. It's been fantastic. It's been going for 7 years, and we're changing the industry, Lee. That's what we're doing, changing the process.
You are, buddy, and it's been a pleasure to know you over those 7 years. You know, and to have done stuff from the start with the launch, and all the things we've been involved in. So it's been a pleasure to know you all of that time. The only thing I wished is that you had picked, well, your family had picked the blue side, not the red side, and then we could have been, best friends forever. But that's a conversation for another day.
You could try your hardest, mate, but I can never be converted.
I know, buddy. I know. You are born into what you're born into.
Yeah.
And for the listeners, I'm an Everton fan, and Bryan is a Liverpool fan. So it's just one of those things. But football rivalry is always fun. So let's get into it. So for anyone, let's take it to the basics. So for anyone that doesn't know, what is Gazeal? What is a reservation agreement? Take us back to the basic of how that works and how that can help an agent.
Yeah, sure. So Gazeal is, first of all, is a verb of gazumping, gazundering the deal. And essentially the name of the business is exactly what we do. Is we provide a service to the public, the buyers and sellers of property in England and Wales, that enables them to both go into the sale when they're introduced to each other through an estate agent, to go into the sale without that threat, right? So the buyer has no threat of being gazumped, and the seller has no threat of being gazundered, which are two aspects of the transaction that both of them are fearful of, nervous about, same thing, I guess. And that, of course, makes people, because of the fact that you feel under threat, you tend to look for a plan B in case it happens. And the danger with that, of course, is that you quite often find a second house to buy, a different house to buy while you're looking. So our agreements stop that happening. It gives people a bit of trust with each other, a lot of trust, actually, and a lot of faith. And the best part is, in 7 years of just doing this, we've managed to help people take away a significant proportion of the risk of moving. So our agreements produce a 95% expectation of exchange rate. So they do get to exchange 95% of the time, which is twice as good as Scotland. And probably, if I looked, one of the best on the globe, compared to what is a broken system, where people can withdraw whatever they want with no penalties, do whatever the hell they want at any point, over something so incredibly important and meaningful as buying a property, moving home. I've always thought that's completely wrong. So I'm really, really proud of our results.
That is a huge stat, 95%. So just talk me through how it works. If, say, for example, only one person in the chain's using it, and then how does that work if, like, the chain falls apart?
Chains were the thing that when I started this, after all my years as an agent, those that knew me, that I'd either worked with or worked for, were like, "You're crazy, don't do that, it's not going to work." And now, of course, they didn't know that. Nobody does. It's a great thing about business, about ideas, right? Absolutely. If it's not been done before, no one knows it doesn't work, right? Because no one's tried it. And I lived on I have an attitude of, well, let's try it, right? If you tell me it's not going to work, what you're basically doing is you're pouring fuel on my fire, right? Because I'm going to prove you wrong. And so the chain was the one area that took a bit of working out, and a bit of jiggery pokery. But actually, we got the chain situation to work, and I'll explain it in a minute, simply because we were there trying to do it, right? So when you try to solve a problem, you got to keep going, you keep going, you got to keep going. And, out of 100 attempts, we only need to succeed once for it to work. So in a chain situation, let's say you've got a seller who's selling to a first-time buyer, and that seller wants to buy a house as well. So in that situation, the seller can do a reservation with his buyer, so they can lock in the sale. So he's on firm ground now as a buyer in the market. And then the seller can offer his next seller and a chance to join into the reservation he's already got. So then all three people are in the same agreement. That's one of our latest innovations, recreating an agreement for one whole chain, which we're doing a lot of. Because, of course, as you go up the chain, people are even more keen to get into an agreement because they want the safety knowing there's a chain behind them. So that can happen. The second thing that can happen is if the seller above this one doesn't want to do it, well, then you just keep the reservation as it is. And if that link breaks, the buyer at the bottom is not, nobody's penalized. And of course, if you've got a buyer that's got a chain behind them, then the buyer can invite their buyer to join into the agreement. And the reason that all works so incredibly well is we produce our agreements for the public, not for estate agents. So it doesn't matter to us who you want to buy through or who you want to sell through. If you are a member of the public and you want to reserve your sale and you inform the estate agent that that is part of the transaction, they have a duty of care to pass it on to their clients. And when they do, the clients always want to talk to us. So yeah, it's been fantastic, and we've the chain element. I think I'm probably, someone out there might correct me, from the late 70s or whatever, but I think we're the only company who's ever done it, ever reserved an entire chain of transactions in the UK, which is an absolute game changer.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that in the news. I saw your press release a little while ago saying that was the first full chain, which I thought was really good.
Yeah, and it exchanged in under 6 weeks, 4 links in the chain.
It's good.
Which is pretty unheard of, because everybody in the chain was locked in. They were all super keen to do it, and they all got their skates on. They all ended up creating a WhatsApp group with each other in the end, we found out, and that's what got it through quickly, because they were all trusting of each other, which is just fantastic. It's the best bit of all of this, is how the public feel, in this process, that we know they feel nervous about it. We know they feel anxious. We know that they don't like it. So when you can provide them with something that they really love, that's just great, right?
Let me ask you about the fees. Who pays for it? Is it the is it the person who's buying? Is it the person who's selling? How does it work?
Yeah, so in the reservation, both parties, seller and buyer, they agree an amount of compensation, right? It can be up to 10 grand. Most people go for sort of 4 or 5k. I think our average is about 5 at the moment. So let's say you got 5 grand. So you got 5 grand, which you will receive if someone mucks you around in the deal. But you're in a chain, so quite often people in the chain don't have 5 grand lying around. They're relying on deposits from the seller of their property, so on and so on. So what we do is, instead we say, well, keep your money. Okay, you have a bond with each other that Gazeal produce, and then there's a fee, and that fee starts at 500 quid. Now, we only charge one fee, right? We don't care who pays it. We don't charge everybody. So we will charge one fee of £500. Typically, the agent will, the seller will decide on who pays that fee. So it's mainly the seller's decision. Do I want my buyer to pay it? Because there's a queue of them at the door. Do I want to pay it because I can't see anybody I haven't seen anyone for 6 months? Or actually, in most cases, over 80% of our agreements, both parties agree amicably to split it right down the middle, and they both pay half each.
Okay.
They do so with confidence, because one of the aspects of our process is that in the event an agreed situation happens where the house sale can't go through nobody's fault, then that money's refunded to them anyway. So if you can't buy the property with a Gazeal agreement, or you can't sell it through nobody's fault, it doesn't cost you anything.
Okay. And what sort of things would class as like a no fault?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, anything that the parties want to have in the agreement, they can have. And that's the other beautiful thing about what we created. It's a flexible agreement. So we bespoke pretty much now every agreement we produce. We produce them, and the sellers and buyers, if anything they're particularly concerned about, can go into the agreement. So they build their own agreement essentially very quickly with our help. But generally, we present them with an agreement that's been pre-written to get them started, and we give them 4 major terms. First of all, we cover the survey, which is the biggest one. It's the biggest issue, we deal with, is the survey on the property. And everyone listening to this will know that when you have a survey done on the property, buyers typically panic, or pass out thinking that this place is falling to bits, because they don't understand the dynamic of surveyors and why the surveyors are doing what they do. They're not walking around going, "I love you, the kitchen's lovely," and oh, if you knock that wall through, it'd be great. They're going, "Don't buy it because that's falling down. That roof's knackered. We haven't been able to look at the boiler, so that's flagged." So there's so much that people read who are not educated at surveying, reading surveys. So what we've done with that, knowing this, when we started Gazeal, we made a provision in the agreement that basically says, look, if something major, something that's going to affect the health and safety of you or your family, that it's an urgent repair, it's urgent work, which has to be classified as in a building survey as Red 3, but in other surveys it's not, that you did not know about. So it's an urgent repair that you as the buyer had no knowledge of before you signed this agreement. So you went around the house and you couldn't see anything wrong with it, and no one told you in advance. And then the cost of fixing that repair exceeds 1.5% of the value of the house. And we put that bit in because it stops people in the early days of Gazeal pulling out for an urgent repair to the chimney breast or to the fence that was wobbling or the gutter that was leaking. Small remedial jobs that aren't going to threaten your health and safety, but are urgently done. So if you didn't know about it and it's a massive repair and it's going to cost you money to do it, 1.5% to do it, well, then you can walk away. But you can walk away if you can prove it. So the burden of proof is always on the person that's raising the issue. Yeah, we deal with all of that, so the estate agents don't have to. It makes it easier.
Definitely.
We cover off the chain, as I mentioned before. So if you're in a chain and it was known beforehand, and somebody in that chain that is not party to the reservation, so the link that's not in the reservation, terminates the sale, which stops your seller and buyer from going ahead, they can decide what they want to do. Do they want to pause the agreement and go back to market? Do they want to give each other time to reform the chain? They decide. Finance is the next one. So if there's a mortgage on the property that's downvalued, as long as we've seen sight of that, and it's an RICS surveyor, then, a bank valuer, then, and people can't get the funds for it, then that's fair enough. They've got to try twice, but if they can't get it, that's fair enough. But generally, if you as the buyer can't get a mortgage, unless it's for a couple of events like the mortgage rates go up or your mortgage offer expires or whatever, then you're going to be paying compensation. But if the property is not mortgageable and you can't borrow on it, then you're not going to be having to worry.
Okay. I like it, Brian. I like it. And I want to ask you about the new deposit option. I've seen some of the tube ads, and I want to ask you about why do you have, why are you doing it? Tell us about it. Why is it new?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've wanted to do it for a very long time, for a number of different reasons. I was asked this actually this morning as well by someone else. So yeah, look, first of all, when I was an estate agent, I took a long time getting to understand about working with customers and treating everybody fairly and giving everybody the same opportunities. Now I did sales and lettings, as most people have done. And what I could never get my head around, and it's probably if I look back, it's one of the reasons that Gazeal came out. I kept thinking, well, it's really unfair. You've got a tenant that looks at a property and can put down a deposit to hold it, and then we can't have any more viewings on it. And if I've got a negotiator that I'm competing with who's got a tenant on a property and I'm trying to outdo them, well, I can't, because that tenant now has got the property. Whereas in sales, if I had another buyer, if I had a colleague that was trying to sell a property and I had a buyer for it, I'd still be pushing that buyer across as the best buyer. So what I wanted to do is replicate what I thought was a much fairer process for tenants, for the public, not for me, the agent, because it's unfair me trying to blow somebody out with my buyer. So what I wanted to do is make sure that the agency could treat everybody the same way, give every customer the same opportunity. A landlord gets the security of a tenant putting down a holding deposit.
Yes.
Which is a precursor to the security deposit. But a seller and buyer don't. In fact, it's the opposite for a seller. They get a buyer they accept the offer of, and we know that that buyer is looking at other properties, is going to not switch off their Rightmove alerts. So the deposit scheme was brought in. First of all, we needed to, have an FCA element to this because of the regulation required around holding on to people's money and so on and so on. Secondly, I wanted to make sure that buyers of our agency had, or of agents have, the same opportunity to secure their dream property as a tenant would do, which they can do, obviously, with the deposit. And also from a seller's point of view, there are some sellers that when you list their property, they're not quite sure what they're doing just yet. They're not sure if the move's going to happen, if they will ever find something. And estate agents are very good at saying, don't worry, get your house on the market and so on. But there's about 10% of sellers that we deal with, that agents deal with, that aren't sure that a reservation might be the right option at that moment. But if you say to them, irrespective of what you do, we accept a deposit from your buyer to lock in the sale of your property and give you that security, they'll bite your hand off, and they all do. So they're going to come off. They're going to come off the market anyway. So why not have a holding deposit when you come off the market versus not having anything? So yeah, what it transpires is that estate agents are super keen on the idea. It is becoming almost a staple part of their process now. We take deposits, which puts them light years ahead of their competitors. And then what happens is when people come on the market and they begin to get more confident and they begin to get more committed, they all switch into a reservation, which is the best route for them.
I like it, Bryan. I very much appreciate you going through all the how it works and explaining it all. I want to ask you something that's non-related. Well, it might be related. It's about property predictions and a crystal ball. So what are your predictions for the property market that we are currently in? What do you think?
I think it's pretty good. I think the market's really good. I think I know it's really good. I see it every day, and we speak to agents all over the country with a hell of a sample size now. Look, you're probably asking that question to the wrong person, right? Because if you asked me in the middle of the worst depression we could ever have, I'd tell you that the market was positive, because it always is. Because there isn't any individual estate agent out there that's dealing with the entire UK market on the same day.
Yes.
So
it's true.
Estate agency is about, I've said it before, multiple different markets. And yeah, I mean, interest rates doesn't matter, does it? Right? It doesn't matter to inflation, because at the end of the day, in your area, people move for other reasons. They move, people don't sit and wait, Lee, if they want to move and think, we'll do it in 2027 because we think interest rates might be at 3% by then and inflation might be under control. They move today because they're pregnant. They move today because they've got a new job. They move today because, the kids have moved out and they don't think, and then we think we don't need this big house anymore. Or they move today, God forbid, because someone passes away, right? So, and buyers don't wait to buy on the same situations. Yet for some reason, estate agents think they do. Oh, he won't do that, and he might not buy that. He won't pay that for it. We'll never sell it for that. Yeah, they won't do that reservation because it costs 300 quid. Oh, they wouldn't do that. They have no idea. None of us do. The point is, the market is always really good because it's the market that you create yourself with the right mindset. If you have a limited mindset, you'll be affected by market conditions. If you don't have a limited mindset, you won't be. So for what it's worth, I think it's a great market. I think I'm pleased to see some of the relaxation of the rules around mortgages, particularly for first-time buyers. I think it shows that the over-regulation that came at the end of the financial meltdowns in 2009 and 10 have finally taken too long, but they've finally been relaxed a little bit, and people are being trusted a bit more. So mortgage availability is good, and yeah, build more homes is what we need to worry about. So if we can build some more properties, then I think the market will become much more even. But at the moment, it's a really good market, as it mostly is.
Bryan, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thanks for your insights, and thanks for sharing everything with us.
You're welcome.